Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Up the Guts podcast. Joining you as always is Tricky, and we've got Dilnug over here. And it's not always you get to interview a premiership player, but we are joined by James Harms. How are you, Harmsy?
Good boys, thanks for having me on.
No worries. Thank you for coming on. So obviously, I've known you through growing up in Devon and all that type of stuff. Now, obviously, you grew up in Clyde. Would that be right?
Yeah, grew up in Clyde. Grew up on 50 acres in Clyde. I think you actually played with my little brother, didn't you?
Jack,
in the juniors, yeah. So we've known each other for a while through Jack. But obviously played all my junior footy at Dev Meadows, and I was lucky enough to play a few senior games there as well. I think I played eight games there in the seniors, and then as you said, went on to get drafted to Melbourne, and played my TSC Cup for Dandenong Stingrays.
Yep. So obviously, you're recruited by Stingrays as a bottom age player in 2012 and played 6 games for the season. And how was it in mid 2013 being able to play for Vic Country? How was that?
Yeah, it was good. I mean, I remember I would have been like 16 when I got invited down to Stingrays. I kept missing out on the invitations, and they actually had my wrong address down. So they sent me a letter, but I never got the letter. And Kane Spring, who I used to play with at Dev Meadows, was at Stingrays at the time. He rang me and said that my name was on the list, but I just thought he was taking the piss. Mm-hmm. So then, I ended up going down there as a 16-year-old. As you said, I played 7 games, played a few finals. Then the next year I played, every game, and was lucky enough to play a few games for Vic Country, which, I'm really proud of, and still have that jumper at home at Mum and Dad's hanging up on the wall.
Yeah, now, just before I get on to it, I might ask you to actually chuck those headphones on because I can hear some echo coming through, if that's all right.
Yeah, no dramas.
So going into it, how was it with the rep programs and all that? How did you get noticed in Stingrays and all that? What was that pathway like?
I took a bit of a different pathway. I missed out on. I didn't play much. I didn't play interleague until I was under 14s, I think it was. Then obviously missed out on Stingrays until my bottom age year of under 18s. So it was a little bit different. I wasn't really in any of the programs. That probably drove me to try and be a better footballer. Trying to prove people wrong. Remember a pretty funny story when I would have been under 11s or under 12s. I got cut from the interleague, and I went home and I cried in the bath. So what's that?
Bubble bath or?
yeah. In the bubble bath, had a few tears, but that's helped made me the player who I am today. Trying to prove people wrong and build resilience.
Yep. Now, obviously, in 2013, Stingrays had a pretty good season, but you unfortunately lost the grand final Eastern Rangers. What was that like that year, going into playing majority of the season in the Rays?
Yeah, it was super fun. I got to play with heaps of mates from school. I went to Hallam Secondary College, which had a sports academy there. So I went there for football, and I was lucky to get a scholarship for year 12 there. And I played. We obviously made the grand final that year, which was sorry, did that just cut out on?
Just a little bit, but keep going.
We made the grand final against the Dandenong Stingrays. Against the Eastern Rangers. We beat them by like 60 points, like 2 weeks before that game, and ended up losing by like 90 points, which was pretty disappointing because it would have been good to get some silverware for the Stingrays. I think they've won one now, but they hadn't won one at the time. And obviously I played against Christian Batraka, who I play with now, and he obviously got the chocolates over me that day. But it was a fun year and something I'll look back on now. And I really enjoyed that year of my life in football.
What are your memories of playing at Dev Meadows in early days and the development that helped you to get to this stage?
My memories of Dev Meadows, just having fun with my mates. I was down at Dev Meadows since I was a baby. My old man played there, so I kind of knew everyone. Everyone knew who I was. And it was unreal to play senior football there, and I got to play with my older brother Patrick in a few games, and just from the junior days, I just remember, obviously meeting heaps of friends and making mates that I still talk to today, and used to love going to the change rooms on a Sunday night when we have the awards night and getting a hot dog and a can of Coke. You kind of miss those days now that, you're a little bit older.
Yep, definitely. And now going into the end, so your end of the year 2013, when it's your draft year, did you have a fair idea? Did you think you were going to get drafted in that first part? And how was it when you didn't get picked in that first part, the national one?
I honestly thought I would get picked in the national draft. I spoke to pretty much every team, had interviews with every team. Most teams came to my house. I went to the national combine, and my manager and I were pretty confident that I would get picked up in the national draft. It was going to be obviously later in the draft, but a few midfielders slipped back, so I think that kind of pushed me back a little bit in the draft. When I missed out on that, it was pretty heartbreaking. I thought that my AFL chances were over, but then I was lucky enough to. I think it was the next day or a couple of days after I had the rookie draft, and I was lucky enough to get picked up by the D's with pick 2 in that draft, so I didn't have to wait too long, which was a real relief for myself and for my family.
Yeah, definitely. So, what type of stuff goes on at the draft combine, and what type of what clubs stood out? What type of stuff do they ask you, and what did you excel in? Did you think?
The combine is a combination of between fitness tests and interviewing. It was held at Etihad. I'm not sure if they still do it there, but in my year we did it at Etihad, and we stayed over the weekend. I think it started Friday, ended on the Sunday. And you had the types things like 3K time trials, the 20 meter sprint, repeat sprint, beat test. So we did a fair bit. Probably the best thing the thing I did the best was probably the repeat sprint and the kicking. We had a kicking thing where just a kicking challenge. I think I came second or third in the kicking challenge, and it was mainly more just clubs are just there to watch you and see how you perform under pressure. And I did pretty well in most things. But looking back on it now, I don't think it affected where I would have gone in the draft. So
yeah, and I've heard that through people that I know, and that clubs can ask some interesting questions. Is there any type of questions that you can think off the top of your head that you were asked and you're just like, what is the context to this?
Oh yeah, they ask weird questions. I think it was Bulldogs asked me whose spot I'd take in their team, and I can't remember who I said. I think I might have said Luke Dalehouse at the time when he was there. And they're like, why are you going to take his spot? How are you taking his spot? You're 8. I was 17 years old. You're going to come in and take his spot, eh? I'm like, oh, I don't know. It was they're pretty confronting, but they asked them. They also asked questions like, I got in trouble at school a couple of times, and they would ask about that, and they just try and play with your head a little bit. But it's more about just to see what kind of character you are and the kind of person. Yeah, to the kind of person you are. Yeah.
Yep. All right. How was it going to Melbourne? Obviously supporting through your younger years. How was that going to Melbourne?
Yeah, it was obviously a pretty proud moment for myself and for my family, and something I look back on now. It's pinch myself pretty lucky to get drafted to the club that you grew up barracking for. So when my name was read out, I went into the club that day. So literally read my name out, and I was at the training about an hour later. So it was pretty crazy. And to have gone on to play 125 games or whatever it is now and win a premiership for the club, it's unreal.
Who on the first day stood out the most?
Probably Nathan Jones, just because we had a connection already through Zach Jones. We played Dandenong Stingrays together, and I kind of knew Nathan already. But Bernie Vince just got traded to Melbourne as well that year, so he kind of took me under his wing, and Bernie and I are still good mates now, and but like when you get into a club, like I remember seeing like Daniel Cross just being traded there as well, so I was kind of like a little bit starstruck by the players that were there.
Yeah. So obviously you played your first season in the Casey Demons. How'd you find the experience there?
Yeah, it was a bit of an up and down year for me personally. I struggled a little bit with the professionalism side of AFL when I first started playing. I was still kind of an 18-year-old kid that did love to catch up with his mates from Clyde and Devon Meadows. I kind of had to do some growing up, but I was pretty close to playing at the end of that year, but I just missed out on the last game. I think I was touch and go to play. I think we were playing North in the last round, and I just missed out on selection. But I found it was good fun. I don't think I played a whole lot of games. I punctured my lung in one of the games. I missed a few weeks there, so it was, a bit of an up and down year. But it was good to experience senior footy for the first time at a high level.
Yep. So promoted to the senior side when Jack Trengove injured. How was the first game, and who was it against?
Yeah, I was promoted. I can't even remember what round it was. I was against Essendon at the MCG. It was there. Obviously, really, as I said before, getting drafted was a proud moment. But to play my first game was, super proud as well. But I actually got subbed off, so I didn't have that great of a game. I think I had 8 touches. My first kick was a point, which I nearly kicked the goal with my first kick. So, it was pretty crazy to run out there and. Had dad in the stands, but mum was overseas, so she missed my first game. I was lucky. I got to play pretty much the rest of the year in the seniors, and she got to come and see me play after that.
So how'd you find the jump from VFL to AFL? Is it much of a step up, or is it just really just go and play?
It's a fair step up. It's hard to explain now how different it is because I haven't played VFL for a while. But I just remember at the time when I got the ball, I had like no time. When I got the ball, it felt like everyone was coming at me so quick. There was no time with the ball in hand. But as you obviously get older, you get more used to it and more comfortable at the level. It probably took me, first 30 games. It takes you a while to get used to the speed of how fast things happen out there.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
And you received praise early on from Mark Robertson, the head of sport at the Herald Sun, for your contested play. Do you still think that's a crucial part to your game to this day?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as a kid growing up, that was probably my biggest strength was I could always win the ball, but I was probably a little bit small to, obviously make the Stingray sides and whatnot. But definitely. I would say that contested possession and the contest is where I thrive in the game. But this year I've been playing a little bit more outside on the wing. So I'm kind of learning a new role, but you've got to adapt in the AFL. It's hard to break into our midfield at the moment when you got Christian Petrarca and Clayton Oliver in there. I would say it's a pillar of my game, but obviously there's a whole lot of other things that go into my game, not just contested work.
Yep. So now let's fast forward to 2016. You started the year in the senior side. What's a preseason looking like to you now? You've played you're a couple of years on the list now. How have you elevated your preseason? Do you find like the work coming into it?
Yeah, I was actually I was pretty lucky. I was training at Casey before I got drafted, so I kind of knew. Obviously know what the level of what AFL would be like, but I kind of had a taste for it. So my first few pre-seasons I actually found, they're obviously challenging, but as you get older, you get stronger and fitter. And 2016 was probably one of my better pre-seasons as a young player. As you said, I was lucky enough to play round 1 I think that was against GWS from memory,
Mm-hmm.
and we got the win. And I think that's when my game kind of started. I started to feel a lot more comfortable at that level. I think I played a fair few games that year. I might have got dropped once, maybe. I can't remember, but you might know that, Tricky. I'm not too sure. But yeah, it was having a good preseason obviously helps with how you're going to play for the year.
Yep. Now, do you have any preseason stories? Like, take us inside. What really goes on? Like, what type of stuff were you doing at Melbourne? Like, I know people tend to go away sometimes and do high altitude running and type of stuff like that.
Yeah, we don't do. Well, not many boys do that. Back then we all gone. I remember we went to Maroochydore, which is on the Sunshine Coast. We went there for. I think we went there up there for 11 days. So just training in the humidity. You know, training in a different environment, getting used to training in places where you feel uncomfortable. But one story about pre-season, we did this camp. It was an army camp, and it was 3 days long. I think we slept about 2 hours for 3 days. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. We had hardly any food, but it was kind of pretty cool to achieve. It was similar to the SAS show you see on TV.
Mm-hmm.
We did that one pre-season. I think, it was probably the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. All the boys had nightmares of it still to this day. But that's just a couple of things that we do. But now that I'm a little bit older, kind of know what works for me, and it's just getting the work in.
What type of stuff is that? Do you find that works for you now that you're older? That you focus on more.
I actually focus more on cross training, that kind of stuff. So not as much as running, more. I get down to Hurt Locker in Richmond, this gym where I train pretty hard one-on-one with a coach, and it's more obviously doing my running program, but it's more just high intensity weights and ski ergs and the ergos, like the salt bikes and that kind of stuff, the repeat effort stuff.
Yep. Now, fast forward to 2018, late in the season. Take us through what goes on when Simon Goodwin comes up to you and pretty much goes, I want you to be a tagger. What's going through your head?
Yeah, I was who was against him? It was against Bulldogs.
Jack McRae.
Yeah. Jack McRae was the first player I tagged. I'd done a little bit of it before in the VFL before I got upgraded to the main list. And I wasn't too bad at it. I've always been okay winning the ball, but I think that night I don't think I touched the ball much. But I remember McRae had a fair bit in the first half, and straight away I just went to my head. I was like, don't let him get the ball. So I literally just followed him everywhere. Didn't say much to him. Just wanted to keep it as simple as I could, and did a pretty good job. And then from there on, for pretty much for the rest of the year, I was tagging every game and playing probably some of the best football of my career.
Yeah, I think the next week you tag Patrick Dangerfield, which I think is one of the best midfielders in the league. How'd you find that?
Yeah, it was a pretty tough opponent. Big Paddy Dangerfield. He's pretty powerful and strong. Yeah. To go, not really doing much tagging to go and playing probably on one of the best players in the comp the next week was, it was a bit daunting at the start, but tried to keep it simple. And I had people around me, Daniel Cross and Bernie Vince, who I mentioned before, that had done some tagging. So I went in and sat down with them and got some tips off them. And the main thing with tagging is just try and keep it simple and just literally follow wherever he goes, you go. So that's the way I did it.
With someone like Patrick Dangerfield, who's powerful and very explosive out of a stoppage, what ways did you find to try and negate his impact at a stoppage? Because that's probably where he does his most crucial work. He's explode away from the stoppage. Yeah,
I'd just try. Obviously, different players would use different techniques. With him, I'd try and push him into the mess and at stoppage, work him into where everyone else is going, so he can't explode out. But with those more explosive type players, it's easier to get off get on the other side and be offensive, damage them offensively, because a lot of them are pretty lazy when it comes to defending their opponents. So, I'll just try. I've played on him a few times, try and work him into the mess and get off him the other way with my running power.
Then Rory Sloane tagged him, kept him with 17 touches while having 23 yourself. And then this is only days after you had surgery on your broken hand. How much did that affect the how you played? Clearly it didn't much, but
so I broke my hand. Dangerfield actually stood on my hand in that Geelong game in like the last 5 minutes of the game. I knew I broke it straight away. So I had surgery, I think, on the Monday. And then, as you said, I can't remember I think it might have been a Thursday night or a Friday night. We played Adelaide. And that was a pretty crucial game for the club because we were just sitting outside the 8 at that time, I think, from memory. I was obviously a little bit nervous going to the game because I just had surgery and a broken bone, but the surgeon, he assured me that the bone was stronger than it was before I broke it with the plate in it. So just chucked the glove on and out I went. And it's hard to remember the exact game, but obviously played on Roy Sloane, who's a great player, and I've had some good battles with him over the time. But I was lucky enough to get the win over him that day.
Out of the ones that you have got to run with, who did you find the most difficult?
To be honest with you, probably Sam Welsh. I played on him last year, and he's just a running machine. I find the bigger bodies. I'm more of a bigger body, where he's like a lot lighter than me and can run all day. So it's more the players that can run all day that I find harder than the bigger body and powerful players.
Mm. And then in the same season, what I thought we'd never see as a Melbourne fan myself, making finals. How much of an experience was that?
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy journey that year. We came from 2017 just missing out on finals, and then 2018 just making the finals. I think we finished seventh or sixth or seventh. I can't remember exactly.
Should know, but
do you remember what it was?
No, I actually don't.
Actually, I can't remember what it was, but it was around that, and we were just riding a high. Like, we probably weren't meant to be. We probably shouldn't have beaten Geelong in that first prelim. And then we just kept riding that high. We beat Hawks and obviously went over to West Coast and got a fair touch up. But it was a great learning experience for us. And I think it held us in good stead when we came to playing in the grand final last season.
Yep. So tag Selwyn in the first week. So Selwyn have 25 and you minimise his impact. And let me tell you, I was at that game, one of the best atmospheres I've ever seen in my life. What do you like? Looking back on it, how do you reckon that game was compared to like the atmosphere of the grand final?
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. I remember that. I do remember that atmosphere as well. It was a pretty crazy experience. I mean, we were pretty young as well. We were a young side. So I remember I tagged Selwood for the first half, and I think I went to Dangerfield in the second half because he was getting off the leash a bit. But yeah, I kicked the goal in the first quarter, and the roar from the fans that hadn't seen us play finals for I think it was 18 years was no, it wasn't 18 years, sorry, it was about 10 years. Yeah. I hadn't seen us play finals for 10 years. Was the roar was crazy, but the roar in Perth was just as loud, and the grand final was a crazy experience.
We'll touch on the grand final soon. We'll definitely get to that because I'm very keen to get to that. And then in the next week, Hawthorn tag Tom Mitchell, who was the Brownlow medalist. Was it for that year? Was he?
Yeah, 2018.
2018. Yeah. And we knocked out Hawks. And take us through that game as well. Was what was the better atmosphere, the Geelong game or the Hawks game?
I think the Geelong game was better atmosphere, but they were both. I think they were both pretty packed out houses. Yeah. I've just had the job again of tagging. That was the first time I played on Tom Mitchell. I I think he actually hurt his shoulder in the first
Yeah, I think it was
first half.
Neville Jetta bump.
Neville Jetta bumped him, so that helped me out a bit. But yeah, as I said, like we were just riding. We probably shouldn't have beat Hawks, but we were riding a bit of momentum, and yeah, all the boys, a lot of the boys had a lot of confidence, and I think it was in the last quarter. Jake Melksham kicked a goal on his left foot from 50, and I think that's when we knew we were home. And you know, we went over, as I said, you touched on before. We went over to West Coast. I went over to Perth and played West Coast, and we got touched up a fair bit. And the next year, we just thought it was going to happen again for us, but it obviously didn't. I think we had 9 or 10 surgeries to like our starting 18. So we're on the back foot pretty early in 2019, and then we just thought it was all going to happen for us again. And I think missing out on the grand final that year really drove us to become better and win it last year.
Now, before we get on to more 2021 and that, I want to talk about fan John and your relationship with him. Take us through that.
Yeah, I met John Amos. I think it was after nearly one of my first wins, so it was years ago. John has Down syndrome, and I met him in the crowd, and his sister sent me a message on Instagram, and we ended up staying in contact. And then he's been able to come to the club, and I've taken him to the change rooms, and then he came to the BNF one year, and awarded me an award. And during COVID was probably when we became closer. I was trying to send him some stuff to keep him entertained, because he obviously has a disability, and it was a pretty tough period for him during COVID. And yeah, it's a friendship that I hold very closely to my heart. And he's a great man and a great friend. I haven't seen him for a while, so hopefully I can catch up with him soon.
Yeah. Now going into more 2020, you're playing more half back, I believe. Bit of a half back, bit of half forward too. What was the thing about that?
Yeah, I think the coaches had a bit of a vision of me becoming a half backer, which didn't quite go to plan. I played half back in the last round of 2019. I had 35 or something like that, and I thought that they thought I could play there, but yeah, 2020 was a tough year for obviously everyone, with COVID and stuff, and it was one of the tough years of my footy career. Just wasn't enjoying my footy. First time I got dropped in, I would say 6 or 7 years. I was away in a hard way from my family, so that was a tough year for me personally, football wise, and for the club. We missed out on finals again by like a percentage of like 0.3 or something. So just a tough year, but then it drove me to become better and to get back into the midfield for 2021.
Now take us through that year, 2021, how the whirlwind of it, just how amazing was it to get that premiership?
Yeah, it was crazy. Well, obviously I probably had my best pre-season to date. I went back and ran PBs in my time trials, and I was feeling good, probably the fittest I've ever felt. And then gets to round one, I break my scaphoid, which is a tiny little bone in your wrist, which is one of the hardest bones to heal in your body because it gets no blood flow. So, to go on and have a good preseason and do that round one, like it was pretty frustrating. But then I was lucky I got back in 6 weeks, and once we entered the hub up in Perth and we got some real momentum there, and we started to beat most sides pretty comfortably. I'm trying to remember what games stood out. I mean, the Geelong game.
Dylan will be able to tell you. Go on, Dylan.
Nah, I don't know this, unfortunately.
The Geelong game against, was it the semi? The semi, we smacked Geelong by a fair bit.
Prelim?
No, that was
it was prelim, was it? Yeah. Yeah.
Was it prelim? Oh, yeah, prelim. It was prelim. Well, it was a semi. Semi was at Brisbane.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we played Brisbane in Adelaide.
Oh, yeah,
And that was a pretty close game. It could have gone either way, but we matured as a group where we could grind teams down, and we ended up beating Brisbane, and then we had a lot of confidence going into against Geelong. We knew how they played, and we knew that we played our best football, that they probably couldn't come with us. And Big Maxi Gon put on a show for the fans and kicked 5, whatever it was, in about 10 minutes. And then obviously, in that quarter, and then obviously the grand final was one crazy experience. The momentum swings in that game was pretty crazy. It was back and forth, and then we got that crazy run on in the third quarter where we kicked. I don't even know how many goals it was. I was just sitting. I wasn't even touching the ball. I was just watching boys kick goals. And then we had a bit of party time in the last quarter where we knew we had the game won, and that's kind of when it sunk in that I was going to be a premiership player. And I was lucky enough to have my sister there. She was lucky to be in Perth, and a couple of mates. Actually, Kane Spring, who I mentioned before, who played at Devon Meadows, was able to come along and watch because he's travelling around Australia. So, the grand final was crazy, and then obviously the celebrations after it were just fun.
Take us through the day of the grand final. Obviously, it was a night grand final. What did you do in the morning?
What did I do in the morning? Well, obviously, we were in our hub, so
couldn't do much.
We were all staying at our resort. I actually went and got breakfast in Perth at a cafe on the beach. Just tried to stay calm. Treat it as another game. I didn't want to get too wound up too early.
Yeah.
When we got to the grounds, I remember that turn. I was like, "Cool, it's going to be on here." I remember when we ran it, we walked through like the members bit underneath the Optus Stadium, like walked through the crowd.
Yeah.
And like the crowd was going crazy. And then obviously, like when you're a kid, you watch the footy and you see before the grand final, you see them take the photo and sit down. I was like, when that happened, I was like, oh shit, like I'm playing in a granny. But then obviously as the game went on, it's just another game of footy, but obviously a higher goal at the end. If you win it, it's something that I'm very proud of, and wish it kind of went really quick. I wish I could go back to being at the ground celebrating after the game with my teammates.
Did you have any like old players and ex-players come back during that week to talk?
We didn't have any old players come back. We had videos because we're obviously in the hub, so we had the videos and whatnot. But I was actually lucky enough to have Bernie Vince there, who's a good mate of mine, as I said before. He asked for a jumper, so I gave him one of my number 4 jumpers, and he was wearing that. He came down the rooms after and got to celebrate with us, which was pretty special because he was part of the club when the club wasn't going very well. So there was I think there was a few other boys there that I'd played footy with, Jack Trengrove, and a few others. But it was special to spend that time with Bernie.
Yep. Now the celebrations. Now, how long did this kick on for?
Oh, for a few boys, it kicked on for a couple of days. For me, it kicked on for about 2 months. Nah, probably. I stayed in Perth for 2 weeks, and then obviously came home and celebrated with my friends and family. And then I was lucky enough to go to America. It's where my fiance is from, so headed over there, and I came back a little bit fat this year. Back to pre-season, was probably celebrated a little bit too hard.
Yep. Now, funnily enough, Dills actually held the Premiership Cup.
I have, yes.
Really? How did you get your hands on that?
Goody's friend's my uncle.
There you go.
So, yeah, I slept with it for about 10 minutes. Best 10 minutes of my life.
Did you get to have a beer out of it?
We had champagne out of it.
Fancy.
Yeah, lovely. There you go. I had a fair few beers out of that on many occasions.
I bet.
Now, obviously, I don't know how much you can touch on this, but Simon Goodwin as a coach, obviously he was in the media a little bit. What's he like actually as a coach? How would you describe him?
Yeah, he's unreal. He's really calm. He's we've got a great game plan, but it's not just him. We've got really good assistant coaches around us now as well. Adam Uze, Troy Chaplin, Greg Stafford. But Goody's he's a calm coach. I don't think he's ever really given me a spray. He tries to keep things in perspective and he talks about the greater purpose, and that's like giving back to our fans. So he's a great guy, and I get along with him really well. And I'm excited to see what we can do as a footy club for the next few years, because I feel like we've got a window to be one of the great sides to ever play the game.
Now, I know what Dylan's answer will be to this one, but I'd like to ask, in the Casey side, is there any young player you reckon we should keep an eye out for?
There's a few. Probably my favorite is Blakey Howes, but he's just gone down with a foot injury, so he'll be out for a bit. But I shouldn't say favorite. I should say he was probably the most promising. To maybe play a game this year. He was emergency a few weeks back. But big Jacob Van Roy, he hits the packs pretty hard and can kick a goal. But they're all good players. Taj Woden, who obviously the son of Shane Woden, who won a Brownlow medal at the club. So there's a few really good players coming through, and we're excited to see the young and the next generation push through. Who's Dill's favourite?
I'll go Toby Bedford and Ryan Koo.
Ryan Koo.
I just say
Toby's a gun.
He's got a crush on Toby, I think.
Huge. Yeah.
Toby's a gun. Yeah.
He's a gun.
Yeah. He'll be playing in most sides at the moment. But we're just got a lot of small forwards and we don't have many injuries, so he'd probably be the next player. And I think he's been sub every game. So
yeah. You had to give Ryan Koo a mention, didn't you?
Of course.
Now, I just want to ask one last thing. There's obviously been talked a bit about it. How crucial and how good of a player and how crucial to your team is Luke Jackson?
Yeah, big dog of Jackson. He's a good player. He's I think people forget he's only 19 or 20 years old. So he's crucial as for our side. The stuff he does around the ruck, he's pretty much an extra mid for us, and then he can go forward and kick goals. So hopefully we can get the pen on the paper soon with him, because I know there's a lot of talk around him and potentially getting paid a big packet to leave the club, but I think he'll stick around.
I hope.
Yeah. Anything, Dill, you'd like to add?
I'm all good.
Well, you've obviously had a good start to the season. How have you found your form so far?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, mate. I feel like I've probably the best set.
Other than
best start.
Coming back fat. Other than that,
I was a little bit fat. Yeah, I had COVID over Christmas, so that kind of played a bit of a part in it. But I'm feeling good. I mean, I've kicked 6 goals already for the year, and I'm playing a bit more of, as I said, half forward wing role. So I'm just trying to play my role for the team, and the team's playing really well at the moment. We've got some things that we can still work on, but I think at the moment we're probably the side to beat, and hopefully it stays that way and we can keep winning games. We haven't lost a game since I think we've won 11 in a row now. So I'm feeling really good and feeling really confident in my body and keen to see where the season can take us.
Well, I'd like to thank you for jumping on the podcast. It's been a privilege to have you on, and hopefully you guys can keep winning and hopefully go back to back for your case.
Thanks, Trini. Appreciate it, brother. We'll have to catch up for a beer soon down at Devon Meadows.
I've
seen you won the premiership you won your premiership, didn't you, for cricket, didn't you?
Yeah, went back to back.
There you go. So hopefully I can go back to back. But thanks for having me on, boys. I appreciate having me on, and all the best to you guys as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.